The Beatles' final love song, Real Love, once more the most celebrated band in human history, gathers to create an anthem for love, using the songwriting talents of their tragically slain member, John Lennon. The Beatles, often cynical in interviews and sardonic in the most irreverent ways, had another equally charming gift: their ability to write music that celebrated the greatest gift anyone could give anything, the all-powerful and mountain-moving force that is love. With a catalog of songs ranging from Can't Buy Me Love all the way to All You Need Is Love, the Beatles' mission message was clear: love, love, love. And with this final reunion, they captured the magic once more in this song, Real Love. Today, we're going to show you 10 very interesting facts about the Beatles' Real Love. Don't need to be alone, no need to be alone. Similar to our last video, Real Love found its way to George, Paul, and Ringo on a demo cassette tape John had recorded at his home in New York City. After accomplishing the seemingly impossible task of resurrecting Free as a Bird, the Beatles set their sights on Real Love a year later. Based on John's simple piano and vocal demo recorded in the late 1970s, John had fluttered between a number of takes, lyrics, and even titles such as Real Life. It would seem he was drafting it with an elevated concentration on lyricism. John would usually only spend this sort of time on songs he found incredibly important, such as Strawberry Fields and A Day in the Life. Real Love was quite possibly the next love anthem he intended to make, but tragically could not because his life was taken from him shortly after developing the song. Unlike Free as a Bird, Real Love was recorded with a drum machine, so this time it wasn't as difficult to get into a consistent tempo. However, it was a way worse recording, like way worse, leading many to believe this version of this demo was a copy of a copy or even more, and that left it with more audio artifacts and a degraded quality to it. Producer Jeff Lynne found himself at his wits' ends with Real Love. Jeff says, "The problem I had with Real Love was not only was there a 60 cycles main hum going on, there was also a terrible amount of hiss because it had been recorded at a low level. I don't know how many generations down this copy was, but it sounded like at least a couple. So I had to get rid of this hiss and the main hums. And then there were clicks all the way through it. When we saw the graph of it on the computer, there were all these spikes happening at random intervals throughout the whole song. There must have been about 100 of them. We'd spend a day on it, then listen back and still find loads more things wrong. But we could magnify them, grab them, and wipe them out. It didn't have any effect on John's voice because we were just dealing with the air surrounding him, in between phrases. That took about a week to clean up before it was even usable and transferable to a DAT master. Not only was the quality adding to the difficulty of working on the song, but it found itself less as enthralling as Free as a Bird. When the Beatles began working on Free as a Bird the year before, they felt that they were somehow back together again, finishing John's song in a way that required their own individual creativity. Although there were many elements added, such as the guitar solos, percussion, vocals, etc., the remaining Beatles found it less like being a band again and more like being John Lennon's background musicians for hire. The issue was that John had actually pretty much finished the song, so there wasn't much room for the lads to move around in it creatively. Paul says, "Free as a Bird was really like working on a record with John, as Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, because we all chipped in a bit on this one. George and I were vying for the best lyrics. That was more satisfying than just taking a John song, which is what we did for the second, Real Love. It worked out great, but it wasn't as much fun." One cool thing to note is that even though they weren't able to fly like they did on Free as a Bird, they did find other clever ways to bring new things to the table in perfect Beatles fashion. Most notably as Paul bringing in his double bass, which was no ordinary double bass, but belonged to none other than Billy Black, who played it on Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel. Paul still uses that bass, as you can see in his Chaos and Creation video.
Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell.
At the end of the day, the Beatles were craftsmen and legends in their field, so if something rubbed them the wrong way, they had the prerogative to abandon ship, seeing that now they all had maintained incredibly successful solo careers. With the abysmal quality of the demo tape and the less than band-like structure of creating Real Love, they were quite underwhelmed with this second go-around. George Harrison most notably being dissatisfied with the song, leading him to decline working on other lost Lennon songs, such as the beloved Now and Then. Instead, they opted to spend their time using an unused orchestral piece recorded in 1968 as an introduction to Don't Pass Me By, entitled A Beginning. This was to be the lead track on Anthology 3. This video would be incomplete without addressing quickly the incredible solo on Real Love by the one and only George Harrison. It has this charm about it, reminiscent to what George was doing on the White Album and Abbey Road. Not only had George developed into a formidable songwriter, rivaling the Lennon-McCartney duo, but all these years proved to do wonders for his growth as a guitar soloist. For example, listen to one of his first solos. A bit rough around the edges, as to be expected. After all, they were really just kids. But by now, at this point in George's life, he had ascended into one of the most melodic guitar soloists. Some guitar players often comment that George was great, but he wasn't a Hendrix or a Clapton. But that doesn't make any sense to me. George's solos were fully singable and melodic. He wasn't a quiet person, as the legend goes, but he instead chose his words more carefully, and that cunning is exemplified in his music and solo skills as well. What if I told you a radio station decided that young people didn't want to listen to Beatles anymore, let alone a brand new Beatles song? Pretty stupid, right? That would probably be the most ill-researched opinion ever mentioned about music. Young people love the Beatles. When I was 13, I found myself in riveting conversations about the band because their allure is multi-generational. Well, the BBC's Radio 1 station didn't feel the same way. What is with the BBC and the Beatles, man? Do they ever let up? I don't get it. Anyway, they reportedly decided not to play Real Love because it didn't appeal to their target audience, many of which were in the younger demographic. A spokesperson even saying Real Love was not what our listeners want to hear. We are a contemporary music station. First off, and I do apologize if this is a bit of a rant, but first off, the song was just released. It's a brand new song release. Unless contemporary has a different definition in some parallel universe that I'm not aware of, then it was surely a contemporary song. And also, what kind of ageist bullshit is that? So if you're above 50, your work doesn't mean anything to younger folks? Really? That's ageist and bigoted. Period. Well, obviously Beatles fans were up in arms about this, and using, maths and logic and their brains, they pointed to the fact that over 40% of those who purchased the first anthology album were teenagers. So Radio 1 was dead wrong trying to suppress the Beatles. Paul remarks on the controversy very succinctly, saying, "The Beatles don't need our new single, Real Love, to be a hit. It's not as if our careers depend on it. If Radio 1 feels that we should be banned now, it's not exactly going to ruin us overnight. You can't put an age limit on good music." Well, barring that insanely incorrect assumption, Real Love debuted at number 4 in the UK singles chart and sold 50,000 copies in its first week. And Radio 1 is widely considered responsible for it not performing even better than that, because that was the way most people would have began to hear it. Paul criticizes this by saying, "It's very heartening to know that while the kindergarten kings of Radio 1 may think the Beatles are too old to come out to play, a lot of younger British bands don't seem to share that view. I'm forever reading how bands like Oasis are openly crediting the Beatles as inspiration, and I'm pleased that I can hear the Beatles in a lot of the music around today. As Ringo said to me about all this, who needs Radio 1 when you've got all the independent stations?" Although we won't be having another reunion of this sort, being that now just Paul and Ringo remain, it's worth mentioning that it fills me, and I'm sure most of you, with great joy that this was even possible. When's the last time you heard of a fallen legend's art being resuscitated by his oldest friends and brought back to life with the knowledge you could only gather over decades of craftsmanship? This has got to be one of the most beautiful ventures in not just music history, but ever. Although this is another song, one of the ones that were going to be recorded after Real Love, but decided not to because the charm was wearing off from Free as a Bird, Now and Then doesn't have a ton of readily available information on it, and I'm working very hard to gather as much as I can. It really isn't discussed in depth in any of the books that I possess, and I've turned my sights to the internet to get as much as I can, but I keep coming up short at this point. I will, however, attempt to do what the Beatles did and resurrect the song with all the instruments I own. I believe it's important to imagine what the song might have sounded like if the Beatles had recorded, and of course I'm not even attempting to say I can do it as well as them, but in the effort of salvaging John's unfinished idea, he didn't even finish writing the words. I'm going to put everything I got into creating that song for you all. It'll be like a cover of sorts, just to get a better idea of what it could have been. Look out for that video in the near future. Finally, although there were better versions of the demo, especially the ones where John is playing it with guitar, and I have no idea why on earth this was the best one Yoko could find to give to Paul, seeing that the other demos were already bootlegged and in circulation. An opportunity missed, I suppose. My reflection on this being the very last Beatles record is just like their initial last song, The End, that spoke of, in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. They came back once more to tell again all about the story, the power, and the resilience of that little word, love. Love is all you need, love is real, real is love, real love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I hope you're all enjoying the Cavern Club and putting those ridiculous emojis to good use. I just added some new ones. It's been great fun having more connection with so many of you and going deeper into our love for music. If you want to join, just click the magic join button next to the subscribe button and join the party.